Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us early today. We are so excited to have you. As everyone starts to join, go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know who you are, what school you teach at. I know we have some repeat customers from our first two sessions, so thank you for joining us again. Make sure to select panelists and attendees while we're waiting, so that way everyone can see who you are. Good morning, Susan from Rock Springs. Thanks so much for joining us. Hi, Mercy from Matter Prep, Coral Reef, Christopher Columbus, Fort Myers. Mary Beth, welcome again. See, we have some high school teachers, some elementary school, environmental science teacher, South Dade Senior High, welcome. Oh, we have some great STEM and STEAM teachers. We're super excited for that. Moeller Elementary, Tampa, Boca, Palm Beach, Gainesville, welcome. Martin County, another one from Orange County, hi, welcome. Another Orange County, Miami-Dade, Palm Beach, Bridges Montessori. I see lots of schools that I recognize from our Champion School program and lots of new schools as well. So thank you for joining us today. Richmond Heights Middle School, Mary Help of Christians, Broward, Stream K through 8. That's awesome. Welcome. Academia Charter School West, welcome. Key Largo. Wow, so we are all over the state today. I love it. Thank you so much for joining us. Department of Applied Learning in Broward County. Very exciting. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started so we end on time. But welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for session 3, steaming through the Everglades as ecosystem engineers. So in this session, we are going to learn about the engineering design process as a way to plan, design, and improve sustainability projects in or outside the classroom. So don't worry if you aren't quite familiar with STEAM or sustainability or resiliency. We are going to learn all about it today. And so we'll also get a chance to learn about how to build backyard habitats that we can use to help Everglades animals. So we're super excited to get started today, and thanks for joining us. So just some webinar guidelines as we have in all of our sessions. We'll be utilizing the chat as our main form of communication. So great job, everyone. We'll monitor the chat, make sure that we can answer any questions that we can, and we'll have time at the end of the session as well. We will also make time to answer those questions throughout the chat, and just do us a favor and make sure that you select panelists and attendees so that way everyone can see your questions and everyone can see your feedback and responses. So throughout the presentations today, we want you to connect with us and share your excitement. So we have some of our social media handles, our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, as well as hashtags. So if you take any pictures from today, or if you post anything throughout the week, or anytime you implement some of these lessons, we would love for you to tag us and share with us what you're doing. So with that, we have some great presenters today. My name is Kim Gooch. I am the Everglades Literacy Program Coordinator, and I'm located in Orlando, Florida. So I help to really coordinate a lot of our touches in Central Florida, all the way from West Central Florida to the East Side. And we are joined today by Lance Cutrer from the Museum of Discovery and Science down in Fort Lauderdale. So Lance, welcome, and I'll hand you the floor.
Hello, thank you very much, Kim, for having me and allowing me to take part in the Teacher Symposium. It's a pleasure. So hello, everyone. My name is Lance. I am the Environmental Sustainability Manager for the Museum of Discovery and Science. What that means is that I am responsible for helping the museum become a little more responsible and a little more sustainable in our community. One of the most recent ways we're doing this, and something I'm really super excited about and can't stop talking about, is our new Eco Explorers program. So one of the ways we're trying to build a sustainable community is by getting youth involved in that. It's a really cool program that we've just launched, where 25 high school students are coming into the museum, learning about the Everglades. It's a partnership with the Everglades Foundation, and helping us become more sustainable while getting work experience at the same time. So it's a great way to build community and help us become more resilient and more sustainable. And if you don't know what those words mean, sustainable, resilient, they can have a lot of different meanings. So we'll get to that a little later in the presentation and talk specifically about what those two words mean. But yeah, so let's keep going. So a little bit about the Museum of Discovery and Science. If you've never been, or if it's been a long time since you've been, please come on back. The museum is always changing. It's a very dynamic museum where we have lots and lots of interactive science exhibits designed to teach pre-K to adults, right? All the way to 99 plus. So it's really for everyone. The museum itself, every year we serve approximately 90,000 students on school-sponsored field trips come to our museum, and we see over 400,000 general visitors every year. So we're a busy place, but that's the way we like it. We like to have a lot of people coming in to learn. Everything that we do is driven by our four strategic action pillars, which you see here on the screen: environmental sustainability, physical science education, early childhood education, and health and wellness education. So everything, all the exhibits in the museum, all of our programming, whether it's virtual or science labs or demos, they're all geared towards one of these educational goals, these pillars of the museum, if you will. So we like to do STEM learning or STEAM learning through experiences. We found that when a student, when anyone really, whenever they get their hands on something, or even virtually, when they can see something happen right in real time, that's when the real learning happens, and that's when it sticks, right? So we have a lot of different ways that we approach this. One of which is our STEM mobile. You can see kind of in the middle of the slide on the top, it's our STEM mobile. It's our STEM classroom on wheels. Thank you, Kim, pointing it out there. The STEM mobile travels all throughout South Florida, Palm Beach, Broward, Dade counties. And if you're interested in this kind of, and having the STEM mobile come to your classroom this upcoming year, you can inquire about it. If you're a Title I school, and maybe able to come to your school for free. So it's a great program with all kinds of different things you can do, making things, playing with robots, all kinds of fun stuff. Our hangar, which you see on the bottom in the middle of the screen there, it's our maker space. It's in the museum itself. And this is a place where guests can come in and tinker and play and build. So we set out simple guidelines for a project, and we say, here are all the tools, you build it. Here's the 3D pen, here's the drill, here's the stuff that you need to build your version of a project. So it's a really great place for free play and going through the engineering and design process. Of course, we do lots of demos and labs. We have our Early Childhood Learning Center there in the middle of the page. where it's from 0 to 6-year-olds are welcome to come in and start that STEAM learning process. And then you can see we have other science demos. So if you were to come to the museum, you could sign up and you could do a lab. We could do a kaboom show, which is what you see on the top left there. We have small controlled explosions, looking at the physical sciences of fire and air and what makes this kind of thing happen. And it's a very exciting show to watch. And we do these things virtually as well. So if you're not in close area and you can't bring your students here, we can do these programs virtually as well. All right, so let's get on to what is STEAM. I know as people were logging in, I saw that a number of you were STEM teachers or STEAM teachers already. And so you probably have a good grasp of what this is. But for those of you that are new to this, STEAM stands for science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And it's any lesson that incorporates these. It doesn't have to be a science lesson. It can be a writing lesson. It can be a reading lesson. As being a former teacher, every lesson is a reading lesson. So you can incorporate it into many different things. So don't just limit it just to the science classroom, to the lab. It can really be applied to everywhere. And specifically this art aspect, sometimes it gets left out. Art is seen as a different discipline when it's compared to science, but it's really inherent. It's one and the same. Our gravity clock you see here on the slide is a great example of art teaching science. This is a beautiful artistic sculpture that teaches concepts of gravity and timekeeping and fun. It's just fun to look at, honestly. So art goes hand in hand with all of this as well. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about sustainability and resiliency. We need to, as educators, we need to take STEAM learning up a level. Due to all the countless environmental, humanitarian crises throughout the world, I think it's not enough to simply teach the basics. These are our future change makers in the world, and we need to educate them on how to care and have responsibility. So that's where this concept of sustainability and resiliency come in. It's kind of like an overarching framework that you can apply in your classroom to STEAM learning specifically, but also to any other discipline as well. And we'll get into what these words actually mean in the next couple of slides, but it takes it's a learning process to figure out how to incorporate these things. It requires a new way of thinking of things. But once you get it, you realize that they're actually the same thing. There's two sides of the same coin. Once you try to go down a sustainable path, you start to become more resilient, and vice versa. So let's get into what these actually mean and how we can overlay them on top of what you're doing in the classroom. So what is sustainability? Sustainability in this framework is meeting the needs of the present without compromising the needs of the future. Sounds pretty simple, right? So it's getting everything you need without harming the ability of your students to get what they need later in life, right? And this is why it requires an additional layer of thought process onto things. We have to think about how we're designing our lessons to drive a positive change in the planet, the community, the people, and profit, of course. Everything kind of centers around that. We're trying to change that a little bit and call it a triple bottom line. That's what these three things, people, planet, and profit, are referred to as. When we drive all these three things in the same direction, we can work towards sustainability. And the planet and the people part of it is kind of self-explanatory, right? Where we need to take care of the environment. We need to build strong, healthy communities, partnerships. Um, the profit side is not just we need to make money. It's how can we use our resources more efficiently, right? It's saving resources, but it's also making investments. Um, Everglades restoration is a great example of this. Um, I'm sure later in the symposium we'll hear more about Everglades restoration, but it's making investments in the future. For every $1 of investment in the Everglades, we get $4 back, right? So that is a sustainable thing. That is a sustainable mission. And so let's keep going, and we'll talk about resiliency next. Um, Resiliency is the ability to bounce back from a shock. So if you want a resilient community, you want a community that can withstand a hurricane, say. So let's say a hurricane comes through, the community takes a shock, but because you've worked through sustainability, you have healthy ecosystems, you've built community connected people that can help one another, and you have economic prosperity because you were a good steward of those resources, you made investments where you needed to early on, then you can bounce back more quickly. So what does this all have to do with STEAM learning, right? If I have found personally, and through teaching in my classrooms, and through other teachers and things, that if you incorporate ideas around sustainability and resiliency in your lesson planning and your delivery of your lesson plans, it helps connect students to a place. It gives them that buy-in, right? They understand the underlying reason of why am I learning this? Oh, I'm learning this because it can help make a better environment. I'm learning this because it helps me become a better member of my community, right? So it helps build that stewardship and responsibility, taking care of things. And of course, we want all of our students to have responsibility to take care of things, right? And it facilitates a deeper level of learning that can be applied to multiple disciplines. So it's not just the science classroom. It's using sustainability and resiliency, and helping our students understand what it means to be a part of a community, to take care of our planet, to be resource efficient, right? So we can go through this, and I would like to kind of lead you through, in a few minutes. We're going to talk about how we can take these ideas of STEAM learning and sustainability and resiliency and combine them together. We have a few projects that we have to illustrate to you, and one to kind of work through with you. And for those of you that are wondering, where's the engineering design process coming in? It's coming in soon. Don't worry. We're going to marry it all together.
Yeah, that's a great point, Lance. Thank you. I do want to point out, with STEAM learning in the classroom and the Everglades, they really go hand in hand. And so by classroom, we mean schoolyard, outdoor spaces, really just somewhere to get your students outside and connecting them to nature. In the previous slide, Lance talked about how it kind of gives students that place and that ownership and responsibility. So really, the Everglades is all around us, whether you're in the watershed from Kissimmee to Okeechobee to Florida Bay, or whether you're, in an environmental learning center. The Everglades is really all around us. It's in our backyard. And so we're really going to dive into that engineering design process and how we can become engineers for backyard habitats for Everglades species. So we're helping to connect students to this outdoor place to take ownership, build environmental stewardship and responsibility for that place and or project. We see this a lot with our champion schools. Maybe they have an Everglades garden, maybe they have a food garden, and they take ownership and they feel really proud of what they've done and what they've accomplished. And so by connecting these STEAM projects to the outdoors and something that they can take ownership of, it really allows that responsibility with the students. Also, just some background Everglades Literacy Program resources. We have plenty of different STEM and STEAM distance learning lessons. You can see on our screen, you can design and build your own alligator hole. Alligators are ecosystem engineers, so your students can become engineers like the alligator to build an alligator hole. We have some modeling lessons like build an aquifer in a cup, or modeling a watershed with their Heart of a Watershed lesson. We even have a build your own airboat lesson that walks through that engineering design process, as well as water quality lesson plans. So just some more STEM connections to get your students outside. So before we dive into some of these projects that we'll be talking about today, some tangible projects that you can create with your students outside, go ahead in the chat and just let us know, how does your school utilize your outdoor space, or your maybe a garden or a schoolyard, backyard? What are some ways that you get your kids outside for learning, whether it's STEAM, STEM, or just getting outside? So Lake Stevens Food Forest, I love that. Thank you, Food Forest. That's really cool. Thank you for sharing. School garden, butterfly garden, absolutely. Veggie garden, native species garden, created environment for pollinators, yep. Container gardens, edible garden, wildlife sanctuary, hydroponic, marine touch tank, love that. Absolutely. So I'm sure a lot of our teachers who have these gardens, hydroponics, even just outdoor learning spaces, those students, they take ownership. They feel responsible. They get excited about having this outdoor learning space. And so our next steps are really how to do a STEAM project that incorporates your outdoor learning space. And so students can take it a step further. We can talk about STEAM lessons inside the classroom all day, right? With balloons and race cars and everything. But today we're all about sustainability and resiliency, and doing an outdoor learning space that is sustainable but connected to STEAM. So it's all coming together.
I like to see some of these efforts being undertaken at your schools. They are very laudable. They as a teacher, I'm sure you have a lot of things to do, and to take on extra stuff to incorporate a hydroponics or aquaponics garden, a mountain biking trail I saw, just community gardens, butterfly gardens. It's a lot of effort. So good job, you guys. That is amazing to see so many things. I specifically like those hydroponic gardens. They are that is sustainable as you can go. You can sell the produce. It teaches students where the food comes from. It's all encompassing sustainability. So great, that's awesome to see. So some of the projects that we are going to provide for you, these are things that we do in the museum as part of our Everglades Engineers series, where we take you through the engineering design process. These are projects you might complete in the makerspace, the hangar portion of the museum, or we might send you the materials and we could do a virtual walkthrough of how this happens. And they incorporate being outside and bolstering that environmental aspect specifically. But also that there are some hidden things that go into these. So like bird feeders and bird houses, for example. Right, it's nice to see the birds, and it's nice for the students to learn about the different bird species that we have, but they also serve a vital ecosystem service. They are extremely important in seed dispersal. pest reduction, so mosquitoes and things like this that might cause diseases and things. Birds play a huge role in our ecosystems, and so if we can bolster their populations and make them more of them, especially around schools and things like this, it's a good thing. Bee hotels, these are not for honeybees that live in colonies. These are more specifically for bees that are solitary, that kind of get overlooked, right? The bumblebees, the carpenter bees, the little sweat bees. These are all solitary bees that need a place to make their nest. And this is one we're actually going to go through, and I'm going to show you as an example of how to build one and how to go through the engineering design process. But of course, bees are incredible pollinators. Some crops that we have are totally dependent upon bees pollinating them. So they tie into the whole sustainability triple bottom line and becoming more resilient. Toad houses. Everyone, I think this one is kind of fun because everyone thinks of toads. You think, oh, don't touch it. Well, at least when I was a kid, anyway. Don't touch it. You'll get a wart. I don't know if that applies to anyone that it's here logged in now, but that's what I was taught when I was little. That is, of course, untrue. It's untrue. Myth busting right here. You do not get warts from toads. They are actually really important species, and they're everywhere. You know, we see frogs. We can hear the frogs at night around water and things, but toads are more adapted to being away from the water a little more. You might find toads at your schools. We have all kinds of toads: southern toads, American toads, oak toads, the smallest toad in North America, and we can build little habitats for them. They are really important for pest control, for ecosystem balance. Really, they're they're that middle part of the food chain. That's really, really important. And then the last one we'll kind of mention are seed bombs. These are little mixtures of wildflowers, seeds, compost, clay. You put it all up and then you just chuck it. And wherever it lands, it lands. And then you got wildflowers. So these are just a fun thing to make and build. And, you know, you can use different colors with clay and things like this to make them a little more fun for the students. But it's always fun just to make these and just take them out to the schoolyard and, you know, chuck them and then see what happens, right? So these are some of the projects that we have resources for. We'll share those resources for you, with you. If you ever find yourself in the museum, you could, of course, do one of these projects in the makerspace or through a guided lesson when you come in. So we want to use the engineering and design process when building things, when making. We like to make things to solve problems, and this has been shown, you know, throughout time to be a really great way to go about it. It's a little different than the scientific method that I know many of you are familiar with. The engineering and design process often gets overlooked, especially in those core science classes, because it's not tested. But I think you can incorporate it into your lessons, especially when you're building stuff and making stuff, for several different reasons, which we'll get to in a second. But first, what is it? It's a 6-step process that is iterative, meaning that it repeats. It's not just a one and done. You start it, you finish through step 6, and then you just keep recycling back to the beginning, improving what you're trying to make. And of course, what you're trying to make in this sense would be something that's sustainable, something that will help your community be more resilient. So step 1, define the needs and constraints. What are you trying to make? What do you have to make it with, right? Research the problem, step 2. If you got to put that research into it ahead of time to make sure you're good on what you're trying to do, you understand what you're trying to do. Plan a possible solution. This is where that art can come into play as part of the STEAM, when you can use art to sketch out possible solutions. You can start to build samples as well. So if you have your students aren't so much into drawing, they could start building a simple prototype to start planning their solution out. Step 4, create a solution, create a prototype, something that you think is going to work, right? This is something you're going to start to test. Step 5, test your prototype, right? And then step 6 is just simply improving your prototype, improving your final design and making it better, right? So that's where it just starts repeating. So we can go to the next slide and we can talk about a little bit the why would you want to use the engineering design process? One thing, especially being a science teacher, we taught that students need to be able to state a claim, give your evidence for your claim, and then your reasoning for that claim. This can be applied to writing as well, but it's really critical for establishing a way of like scientific thinking, right? An example could be, let's say your students are trying to build a bird feeder, and they might say, I think the hole that the seeds come out of for my bird feeder should be smaller. That's a claim. Because it has too many seeds have spilled out, right? That's the evidence. I think there's too many seeds have spilled out. I want to reduce the amount of seeds that fall to the ground. So that's the reasoning. So it allows students to understand on a deeper level, what the right answer is and why it's the right answer, right? Especially when they go to those standardized tests and things, you want them to be able to know the right answer, understand why it's the right answer. That way they know they can get it correct. And the engineering design process really helps with that. So this is a project I actually did with my son. He's 4. So this shows that if a 4-year-old can do it, you can scale it up and make it really amazing for high schoolers. But it can be used for pre-K and everything. So this is designing a bee hotel. So our step 1 was define the needs and constraints. We're going to make a bee hotel. This is kind of an example of one here on the left side. That's not the one we made. It's not that fancy. And here are the constraints. Only use those supplies. A used water bottle, recycled water bottles, pipe cleaners, scissors, some toilet paper rolls you see there, and some string, right? So what can we do with that? So step 2 is researching the problem. There's my 4-year-old. His name's Leo, by the way. He was very into this project. He was very, very excited that we were doing this. And so we had fun playing around with it, but we looked at pictures online. As you can see, he was very involved and was kind of like thinking about how it's going to work. We actually have a little insect house at our house. And so we went outside to kind of look at how that one is constructed. So this was part of doing the research, understanding kind of what you could make, right? So plan a possible solution. This is where if you wanted to work in the art, you could sketch it out. Leo's not so good at sketching right now, not yet. He's working on it. So we decided to build something to plan our possible solution anyway. So we cut the top off of our water bottle. He had the idea, oh, let's put the tube in there. It kind of looks like the bee hotel. And then he realized, oh, wait, it's too big. All right, so let's make them smaller, right? So this was planning out the solution, right? And we finished by creating this. When we didn't finish, I'm sorry. Our next step was to create the solution. So you can see he was cutting the tubes in half, and we were able to roll them up and put them in the water bottle there. And this was our creation. This was our bee hotel. We went through that whole process of figuring out what we had, and this was the solution, our first solution that we came up with. And then testing your prototype. So Leo, we asked him, how are we going to hang this up? It's got to hang from something. And so he's like, well, let's tie a string to it, of course, right? So we went and hung it up. It worked pretty good. right? As you can see. But he actually turned to me and was like, Dad, okay, it's kind of small. Can we make it better? And I was like, well, Leo, I'm glad you asked that. The next step is improving your design, right? So we made more of them. We lashed them all together with pipe cleaners, and we hung them up. So we went through this process of we repeated the process again. We went through and kind of learned what kept what we learned from the first time around and just applied it to the second time around and made it something that we think is an improvement. I did see a bee circling around it a few days ago, so maybe it's working. So, but let us know, how do you think we could improve this further? How could you incorporate this into your classroom? Something like this. If you have a woodworking shop in your school or something like that, you could really make something beautiful that is also functional, right? Let's see. Use bamboo. Yeah, there you go.
Very sustainable. Love that.
Yeah. More varieties and sizes. Yeah, that's a good one. All right. Some of the examples we had had different sizes and different things for different sized bees. Of course, not every bee is the same size. All right. Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And this, we love to point out how it adds more skills, more tools to your tool belt. So some science skills that your students may develop while going through this process are data collection, or you could even take it a step further and have students make observations and collect data on what bees they see during the morning versus during the night, how many bees they see throughout the day. So quite a lot of science observation and processing skills that they can gain, as well as counting skills, counting how many bees they see, and communication is important too. So whether that is verbal, like in your case with your son, who's a little bit younger, or written skills as well. So students can write and draw and kind of make inferences that way. So a lot of great skills.
So we've covered a lot of different information during this webinar. We've talked about STEAM, what STEAM is, the importance of STEAM, how you can overlay sustainability and resiliency into your lessons, and the engineering design process. But the main thing I want you guys to remember is that it's all about the ripples you create, right? When you're talking about sustainability specifically and resiliency, the things that you do in your everyday life, like these projects, admittedly, they're going to have a very small impact in the whole global system. Even in your community, it may have a small impact, but those ripples that you created when you brought the students through this process, you taught them the importance of being a steward of their environment and their community, to using their resources efficiently. You could have just created the biggest activist in the world, right? That's going to go out and change the world, literally. So you never know what impact these little bitty things can have on all of our future change makers. So if someone ever comes to you and says, okay, yeah, you're doing these little things, but what is that going to do? Make sure you remember the impact that this could have. And we're teachers. We know you've probably, many of you have had students that have come back to you and, they've changed in a way that you could have never predicted, and they're doing so well and making such good change in the world. So it kind of goes hand in hand with that, and what we're already doing as teachers, but it's requires you to think a little more about where your resources come from, how you incorporate those lessons so you can foster that stewardship and responsibility within your students.
Absolutely. And that's what we're all about here at the Everglades Foundation and the education team is fostering and inspiring that next generation of conservation stewards. So like you said, really we are, at the forefront of the next generation of change makers, policymakers, teachers. And there are so many benefits to this STEAM outdoor learning. So just a few benefits of getting your students outside are health reasons, benefits psychological and physical health, increases ability to learn, helps children build confidence, calm themselves and focus. Learning outcomes. So there are testing that shows that it helps to focus attention. Students will have higher scores on standardized tests in math, reading, science, and listening, as well as increased student performances on critical thinking skills. So that really goes back to that engineering design process and how to think critically through a problem. They're also well-being. So green spaces really help relax children. Just getting your students outside, having them see nature, interact with nature, take ownership again of that nature space, protects children's emotional development, better social interactions, value for community and close relationships. And of course, last but not least, the environment, right? It's beneficial for the environment. So saving the Everglades is not just about science, policy, and technology. We need a community, a public community with a greater understanding of the ecosystem. So just getting students outside, understanding what lives in our backyard really helps to, again, inspire the next generation. And really the best way to understand is to get outside. So on the screen, we have our resources that Lance created and will provide for us. So Lance, if you want to explain a little bit about what these are, and I'll explain how to access them.
Yeah, and just to go back to your point about being outside, I could not agree with you more. For over 15 years, I taught outside of the classroom on field trips, and just the excitement and the buy-in you get from a student when they're outside. I always jokingly say, like, it rejuvenates my soul when I'm out in the Everglades, especially learning and exploring, and it's the same for the students. It really it's great, and you can see it happen when you're out there too, which is neat. So we here at Mods, we created these little cards for you. They're a basic way to kind of go through the engineering design process. Is something you could hand to your students in your classroom, and give them the supplies, and you could lead them through the engineering design process in a STEAM lesson that drives sustainability and resiliency. I think it's all coming together now. So you can find these things on the resources that Kim will provide for everyone. And of course, if you're in the museum, you could take part in building these things, like I said earlier, or if you're virtual, we could provide them to you, send you the kits to build stuff, or you could provide your own materials and we can walk you through it, however you would like. So please use them. And each one has some, you can't see it on this screen, but each one has a little snippet of information about a Everglades specific species that might benefit from your project. Like the oak toad might find a nice house in your toad house, or the southern, we have actually a endemic carpenter bee that's only found in Florida. It's a subspecies of the eastern carpenter bee. I don't know, it's kind of interesting. Your students might find that kind of interest, and it might guide them down a path to explore more species that could benefit from these structures.
Yeah, that's perfect. I'm glad you brought that up, and that these are really helpful for native Everglades or native Florida species. So like the carpenter bee that is endemic to Florida, there's over 300 different species of birds in the Everglades, and a lot of them are songbirds and or migrating birds. And so having an area for them, the seed bombs, right? Planting native species, the oak toad we talk about in our third grade lesson, hurry for a habitat. So we love to support planting native plants and helping native species in the Everglades. So these will be on our website under the Teacher Symposium tab after the presentations. So thank you for sharing and creating those, Lance.
Yeah, of course. And I think the our educator guide that I referred to earlier is also there. So if you're interested in learning about our program for our museum or want to come visit, our educator guide is the best resource for teachers, especially to figure out everything that we can offer and plus. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. And so that that educator guide will also be linked on our website. So thank you so much, Lance, for creating the Bee Hotel with your son. And thank you for presenting today and sharing with us.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we're super excited for this partnership, and we can't thank you enough for joining us today.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, so for all of our teachers, like we said, all of our resources will be on our website, evergladesliteracy.org. Stay connected. All of our sessions will be recorded under the Teacher Symposium tab, and you will also be receiving a follow-up email. And like all of our other sessions, we do have a very exciting giveaway for this session. So our giveaway today, or our giveaway winner is Wendy Sagas. So Wendy, congratulations. You are the winner for the session 3 giveaway. You will receive an email from us letting us know how to collect your prize. So we're super excited to have you join us, and stick around for all of our next sessions. We will have a giveaway at each of our sessions. So I see lots of information in the chat. If you have questions, we'll be sticking around. Lots of hands-on activities, great ideas, great presentation. Thank you so much. So join us at our next session in about 15 minutes, session 4, all about manatees at Manatee Lagoon, a Florida Power and Light Eco Discovery Center. So explore the wonderful world of manatees and learn about the engaging educational resources. We look forward to seeing you in about 15 minutes. Thank you all. The link to register is in the chat.